All right. So, after reading chapter 7, I would say that this chapter was kind of interesting. And it's kind of talking about communication and how important communication is, and how communication has affected the way that COVID has been affected as well. So, going off of this chapter, it's called the hardest science communication ever. So, it says, as terrible as it is that 200,000 unvaccinated Americans lost their lives needlessly desperate, wildly available COVID-19 Despite wildly available COVID-19 vaccines, we must anticipate that the legacy of anti-science aggression will continue beyond that haunting statistic. In some respects, the horrific loss of life might represent just the start of a cascade of adverse health and socioeconomic declines. And then some of the chapters or like sections in this were long lasting damage to American biomedical science. And something in this that I thought that was really interesting excuse me, is in 2021, Tennessee Republican legislators led efforts to pressure their state health commissioner to fire Dr. Shelley Fiskus as the vaccination director because of her support for pediatric COVID-19 vaccinations. It is likely that other state vaccine directors or health officials will face similar pressures to renounce existing or additional school entry vaccine requirements. Assuming this trend continues, we might see the public health consequences in quick order. Early data are already beginning to show declines in routine child immunization rates in the conservative red states. Simply put, we should expect the return of some childhood infections that had previously been eliminated from the United States. The first is likely to be measles, owing to its highly transmittability and the fact that measles reemergence was already beginning in the year prior of the pandemic because of accelerated anti-vaccine activities. And then it just goes on to talk about how like the documenting the impact of anti-vaccine activism from U.S. conservatives on low-income African nations is not easy, especially because most of it circulates through local social media, newspapers, or even word of mouth. However, several footprints of American anti-vaccine activities on the African continent has been discovered, including the use of similar rhetoric, talking points, and even memes, as well as references to Fox News and the remarks made by U.S. political leaders from the far right. Something else that was like really important was like communicating science. This section kind of just talks about the propaganda that comes with it and how the scientific communication kind of also plays a part in it as well. So it talks about here, therefore, scientific communication and public engagement represent key areas of expansion and improvement. Even before we knew the pandemic was about to unfold in the United States, I sounded an alarm that scientists need to communicate better and become more visible in the public eye. So, I mean, that's something that is probably really important to think about. And then something else that was it was like a question. It says here, what might a culture shift that encourages science communication look like? In addition to offering science communication training in doctoral and postdoctoral training programs, we might consider incentivizing young faculty members in our research universities and academic health centers to speak out and engage. I am evaluated annually, just like any medical school faculty member, but I am mostly asked about my extramural grant funding and scientific papers, especially those that are published in the journals with high impact.